Hey everyone, it's Paul, and I am actually in Vietnam in Ho Chi Minh City. Uh, those of you who are a bit older might know it as Saigon, and you can kind of see the background there, which is just this extraordinary, huge, massive city in the background. But that's where I'm going to do this week's YouTube video from because as I have been telling folks that are subscribed to ATG Digital, I am digital nomading for a few weeks through Southeast Asia, been to Singapore, Cambodia, final stop Vietnam before heading home. But let's get down to this week's video, which is going to be on the number one real estate stock right now. But before I get into that, let's do my usual. I actually have this on like hotel note paper, which is that this video, not investment advice. Second, past performance does not equal future results. Third, mistakes, errors, oversights, they happen because me, my team at ATG Digital, we're human beings, stuff happens. Capital loss is a risk that you should consider. Finally, I, the owners, contractors, employees, associates of ATG Digital own, transact, trade in securities that are in our portfolios and this video. All right. Also, this is an ad for ATG Digital. We have subscriptions on our website, atgdigital.media, from $9.99 per month. If you want to check us out for free, you can also read my Substack, which is paulmanpilly.substack.com. All right. Getting down to this week's video. All right. Number one real estate stock right now, in my judgment, in my opinion, is Airbnb. Why? Well, if you go on social media, you'll see that there seems to be really like this coordinated attempt to mark this stock down. I started to notice this, I don't know, let's say a couple of weeks ago, where like all of a sudden they're like, oh, Airbnb rentals are going to collapse in all of these different places. And you'll see Dean put these tweets up, this tweet up that shows, what I'm telling you about, which is on Twitter. People are talking about this Airbnb collapse thing. This one is from KVUE News. The second one, Dean put that one up from Vox. And the third one is from this dude named Nick Gurley. And notice, this tweet, the Nick Gurley tweet, has been viewed 35.1 million times, 35.1 million times. But the truth is, folks, listen, Airbnb, just go talk to anybody that's been traveling recently. Are they suddenly going to stop, using Airbnb? I doubt it. It's not going to suddenly collapse. That's crazy. Which is why when you look at all of what's going on, like the fact that this just like started 2 weeks ago, out of like nothing, out of thin air, just like, suddenly on social media, everybody's like, oh, Airbnb collapse, Airbnb collapse. It has the smell, of something that, this is like being coordinated, being manipulated by people to, I think, to try and like move the stock down. Somebody's trying to like accumulate stock. They're like, hey, let's get people to like just, sell their stock on the cheap. First of all, let's just get down to a little bit of like common sense analysis, right? Number one, Airbnb is not a real estate stock. It is, if you want to think about it in a traditional way, it's a hospitality stock. It's not really, Airbnb doesn't own any real estate. The people own the real estate. Second, they run a platform. In other words, a digital platform, which is like a bunch of computer servers, right? Which are like located around the world. And no different than Uber. Uber doesn't own any cars. Car prices go down or up. Does it really matter? People are still going to show up and want to drive for Uber. So, Airbnb, people talk about it as a gig economy stock. It's not a real estate company. Essentially, really, it's like a computer platform, no different than Amazon or any of these other computer platforms that are out there, which is that it's servers and then people bring their assets that they own. It turns what used to be a passive asset, you own your house, you could never rent a room. Today you can. You could, with a car, you can use Uber. It turns an asset into something that is an income producing asset. So why Airbnb stock right now? Well, I think it's like, if you go look at the numbers, and Dean, you can put this up, put the price to sales chart from Y charts up. It trades at the low end of the price to sales ratio. Airbnb, truthfully, has never been a cheap stock. Right now, it trades for 10 times sales, but you can see, I mean, at the peak, it was, what, 20, 30 times sales. So it's trading at a cheap price. And these platform stocks like Uber or, in another time, Amazon or any of these others, they're never like dirt cheap. First, let's also address this collapse like narrative that's being put out there to get people to panic. Over the last 4 quarters, I'm going to read this out, right? Airbnb has shown growth. March of 2023, 20.5%. December 2022, 24%. September 2022, 29%. June of 2022, 58%. Yeah, there's a slowdown, if you will, relative to the huge numbers that were put up after there was the collapse of because of COVID. But there is no there's nothing going on. I mean, you can talk to anybody. Everybody looks at hotels, then they look at Airbnb prices. I mean, these have become like the two ways of going through the world. Everybody like looks at hotel rates, and they look at Airbnb. Depending on what you're looking for, depending on the destination, Airbnb is a completely viable alternative to anyone that is looking to travel today. And finally, Nick Gurley, I believe, sent his data to Airbnb Investor Relations, and they're like, you know what? You may be seeing all this, but there's no sign in their bookings that there's any kind of collapse going on, which again makes me feel like, yeah, somebody's trying to like move the stock to accumulate it. All right. Looking at the stock price for Airbnb is at $130. $83 was the all-time low, which was, sometime last year when a lot of stocks were pretty low. So it's $83. The all-time high is $212, which was all the way back in 2021. Look at the numbers. I mean, Airbnb is a growth monster. I mean, this thing has just grown and grown and grown and grown from the very beginning. Since 2017, Airbnb has grown from 2.56 billion to 8.4 billion in revenue. What's the bottom line here? Well, bottom line is that, in my opinion, in my judgment, Airbnb stock is being manipulated, being played around, being messed around with by, I don't know who, investment banks. Somebody wants to like accumulate a lot of stock. So you put like this memeable idea, which is that, real estate prices are going to collapse, going to take Airbnb down with it. People somehow are going to mass sell their houses. So Airbnb is not going to, have houses to rent. Yeah, I think that is not going to happen. And generally, from my experience, when you have this kind of like fake meme stuff going on, the stock tends to explode higher because people are short this, buying into this false narrative. And then, I don't know, it gets marked up and big gains come. So if you were to ask me, I bet that when the numbers come out for the next quarter and the rest of this year, they're going to be fine. They're going to, I don't know, at minimum, I would say deliver 15, 20%. Why? Because look at these stories about travel. Dean put up the stories from, I believe, one from The Economist and one from the Financial Times. There's simply no sign people are still traveling like crazy. I've been out traveling myself. I can tell you the airports are full, the hotels are full. I bet Airbnb is seeing plenty of business. So in my opinion, there's this false narrative that's being put out, and it's an opportunity to buy into stock before it explodes higher. All right. So that's the video for this week. Number one real estate stock right now, Airbnb. Check out atgdigital.media for subscriptions. Check out my Substack. And then come back next week for another video like this one. This is Paul saying bye.